Okay guys, we're at the Expo Pacific Northwest, and I'm back here with tactical application vehicles, and I had a bunch of questions about the Bowen Customs bed replacement. It's not necessarily a flatbed. This is designed for a camper to go on top of, and so there are all sorts of questions from you guys, so we're going to get into answering some of those just so you guys know more about this truck. So some of the questions I was getting are, I guess we'll start off first with, what all trucks will this thing go on?
So the idea for this particular bed is to replace any bed that any truck has. I mean, it's not really a brand specific thing. It kind of will be model and brand focused because of the way the frames are shaped, but the overall look is going to be the same. This is pretty much what the production bed will look like. This is the first working prototype, but we wanted to get the idea across that this is basically what the production bed will look like, but the underside of the bed is what will be specific. So if you have a Defender 110 high cap, this will fit on it. It's just going to be measured basically to the cab width, within a certain amount of width, beyond what the cab is. This is about an inch wider than a Tacoma. We wanted to focus on the curvature of the cab and then make it just a smidge wider than that part, on the widest part. So it would be about the same for any truck.
Okay. And so I would imagine if you have a Tacoma, then you guys kind of have the dimensions for that. But if somebody has like a Land Cruiser 70 series, you guys might need to take it for a while to get some measurements and do all that. Yeah,
we would more than likely bring it directly to Brent up there at Bowen Customs, and so he can get a look at the frame itself, take a bunch of different measurements, and then the overall design is there, so he can kind of tweak that in CAD, and then have the mounting points kind of specific. And then the bed height too. We want the top of this bed to match what the factory bed is in its height. So if you do have a camper that overhangs the cab, that is all still consistent. So, and the idea for that is to be able to reuse what somebody's already got on their existing bed, and that still stays the same, because some people might have electrical run from the camper to the cab, and we don't want to change that. So we want the bed height and where the mounting position is for the camper or the bed rack to be the same as it was before, and just replace the bed.
The next question, I did have some people asking, can they use a bed rack for just a rooftop tent with this and run it basically open?
Yeah, the idea behind this was to be able to do that, just like you would your stock bed. Use it as a truck bed. The interior dimensions will be slightly different for the production bed, because we have supports in certain areas on this that were there for this camper. We wanted to see what we could get away with, but Brent's already got a redesign for the layout on the inside to create a little bit more room for bed mounted racks and things like that, because it's like on a Tacoma and like the Tundras, that has the factory track on the inside of the bed, and that's what a lot of bed racks mount to. The track isn't there. A different kind of track can be added. I mean, you kind of add any track you want, really, and then if you're going to go to this length, you can get a little creative and mount it however you want, really. So it's kind of like a blank canvas in there, and it's all flat edged, so you can kind of do whatever you want for drilling through. You can access the bottom side of it if you need to drill straight through, like we did. And it's real easy to kind of do that stuff. So you can put endless amounts of tie down tracks, bed racks, lower bed racks, and make your own. Like, it's a really kind of do whatever you want to with it, really.
And then the next one was center of gravity. There's a lot of people that are questioning the center of gravity. And I guess let's talk about the weight before we get into center of gravity. And so the weight on these things?
So the weight itself isn't drastically different than the stock bed. You figure when you have a bed on a truck, you're taking that off, and now you're putting something back on with less material. So on a Tacoma, you have a steel tailgate. This doesn't have a steel tailgate on it. If you ever lifted a Tacoma tailgate, it's pretty heavy. You don't have that. Even your tail light, the weight of your tail light isn't much, but it's a big, tall tail light. Now your tail light on this is about that thick, and about that long. So there's weight differences there that you're shaving off with this, and you don't have a full-size rear bumper. The bumper we made is heavier material, but it weighs about what your factory receiver hitch would weigh. So you're removing that. It's, even though it's not a ton of weight back there, you're removing that weight, and you're not putting it back on the truck. So if you already have a swing out tire carrier and things like that, you would have to modify it slightly because of where the storage boxes are. But when you're talking about center of gravity, you don't have swing out tire carrier off the back with a tire standing vertical. In this particular truck, it's laying down flat in the bed, down in the floor, all the way forward. So the center of gravity is drastically improved with this bed, as it is configured on this truck. I'm kind of particular about where I want my spare and some of my other weight.
Yeah.
My air compressor is as far forward as you can get it, right on the dead rail, and in here in the inside. The race jack is on the other side, same place, all the way forward, and as low as it can be on top of the bed rail. So center of gravity is extremely low on this bed.
Right. Yeah, and he's got big tires. These are 37-inch tires that this Tacoma's on, which is crazy.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of Tacomas running a 37. And then, so I talked to you about the AluCab canopy campers, and you were saying that there's a lot more weight saved on that setup because you don't need the fit kit.
Correct. Yeah, so the production model of this bed, we've been working with AluCab and OK Four-Wheel Drive and those guys since day one in the US. So we want to be able to continue that. We're putting one on a Gladiator here soon. Like, we're still doing a lot of work with AluCab. So I very specifically wanted this bed to fit the AluCab canopy camper for the mid-size trucks, and then the AluCabin for the full-size trucks.
Right.
So with that being said, the entryway in the back of this, you will have two options for other campers that mount on top. You can have a swing gate that opens up like a door.
Right.
But you can also have the drop-down ladder underneath the bed, and it slides out from underneath the bed and supports on the ground. So
pretty cool.
That'll help you with the AluCab, canopy camper for the door, the full height door. That frame will fit. The back of this bed will be designed to fit the door frame of the AluCab, so you don't need the fit kit for the sides. So, and they'll all be the same. So it's if you have a Colorado or a Ranger or something like that, you won't need to buy a Ranger or Colorado fit kit because the door is the same.
Yeah.
So the entryway for the bed will be shaped the same to accept that AluCab canopy camper.
Which saves you like $500 on the initial
Yeah,
build.
saves the customer about $500 or so for the fit kit they won't have to buy.
Right, yeah, because when you do go to price an AluCab canopy camper, you'll see there's a drop down for your truck, and that's basically because you remove the tailgate. So that's what we're talking about if you're not familiar with that system. Okay, so the next question I was getting is on the battery box here.
Mm-hmm.
People saw that you have a battery that's low. I don't know if they understood that you're on 37s, but anyway, you were explaining that a little bit better to me. There were concerns with, does your battery get wet? Do you worry about water getting into that compartment? And anyway, you can explain that better than I can.
Yeah, so if you're able to see kind of the level here where everything's at, the way this is like a well cabinet here, and we have a subframe underneath that supports the battery, and everything is mounted to this bulkhead for easy access. This is, if you look at how high this is, so this seal here, it's not, if you submerge it, it's not a dry bag. It's gonna get wet inside, right? If you pressure wash it, it'll get wet. But as you can see, like, this just went through 600 miles in Baja, and you can see how little dust there actually is in this. And we didn't clean this out. This is how it was after we came back from the trip. So it's doing a good job sealing. This is the first gasket we've tried. This is the first gasket Brent put on here and we've tried. So we've changed the gasket in the bottom of this just to try a different, thinner one.
Right.
And it's working a little better. But for the first test, this has done exceptionally well for us. But if you look at where the hinge is and where this bottom gasket is on the door, you would have to be in water this deep to put water in that box to submerge the battery. And you're going to be sitting in about shin deep water in your driver's seat if you're worried about getting water in there. So I would be more concerned about what's inside the cab than what's inside here for water ingress. So, and we can also do like weep holes and things like that in the bottom. If we did get water in, the water can come out.
Right.
So,
and even with this little amount of dust, guys, don't forget that this is a prototype. This is the first version of this, and it's going to be. This is not the production model.
Yeah, and something to keep in mind too. You're driving a truck off road.
Right.
You're going to get dust.
You can't get
everywhere.
away from it.
Yeah. And if it's, I'm not really too concerned about that. This can be blown off with air. I've got an air compressor and hose right here. I can blow it out if it's real bad. But it's right here and it's serviceable, so you can see it. If it is wet or something, you can service it and you can get to it, so it's not hidden away.
There's little things with this bed, even having this open. Just looking at that right there, I'm just like, man, bench space is so important.
Make a sandwich,
camping, and you've got 4 of them right here.
Yeah,
I have so many dreams about a truck bed like this.
It's come in really handy, and you find things like by accident that have been working out really good.
Yeah,
you know, so it's cool. It's fun to.
It's so cool to
work with. Right after your first video, we went straight to Baja and tested it and lived out of it. You know, so it was a legit trip.
Right.
You know, that when we did rock crawling on that trip, high-speed desert stuff, I wanted to see if I could get dust in it, and And honestly, like the cabinets actually did far better than I thought they would as far as dust ingress.
Right.
Like you could see in the battery box, like we didn't touch that
It wasn't
thing,
very much
and
dust at all.
hardly any at all. And I was worried about the rear hatch because we just stuck some more beading, kind of like this gasket here,
Right.
in there, and we tried to seal that off better. And it got a little bit of dust around the end, like on the corners
Right.
of the bed over there, but it was right at the base of the door.
Yeah.
So I was really stoked that it wasn't bad at all.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. Even for anybody that's not standing here, of course, the battery box side, like maybe it
Yeah.
looked like a lot of dust. You get that much dust on your dash when you open your door and mow.
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah.
So
the wind
it's
blows,
like-
you've got more dust.
Yeah.
And,
So that wasn't anything.
and this one here, like this is the dust. Like that's the amount of dust from Baja. Like I haven't taken anything out or cleaned anything out since
Right.
then. So
A nice clean spot.
yeah, I mean you can see where the gasket's sealing.
Yeah.
You know, and
Oh, that's
but
great.
it's I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, I don't want to even change it really because
Right.
I don't know if I'd make it any better than that.
Right. Do you have any idea if this bed is compatible with like the long range fuel tanks?
This has an LRA 33
Oh, okay,
gallon
awesome.
tank in it. Yep. So when we put those tanks in, that tank fits in the factory location, but they use up every square inch under that thing. So you still raise it up high, but it doesn't come above the factory location of the stock tank.
Right. Okay. And I guess every vehicle is going to be different. So if you do have an aftermarket long range tank, talk to them first, and maybe they can work around
Yeah.
it or something. But
Yeah, and it shouldn't impede anything.
Okay.
You're kind of opening up some things, some space in these things, because where the factory spare goes, if you have like a 33 and you try to put it in your factory spare location, it'll probably hit your diff
Okay.
as a suspension cycle. So we tend to move that anyway.
Right.
So you're opening that space up under there too. So if you wanted to, like on the front Forerunners, we'll do auxiliary tanks, but on the Tacomas and stuff, it's a tank replacement. They don't have like an auxiliary tank that goes in that location, like under the bed. So I use that spot for like an air tank or volume tank, because you can stack a couple volume air tanks there for your air compressor and just have working air.
Sweet.
And it's all out of the way. So there's any number. I mean, you could do battery boxes under there. You could do anything you wanted under there, where your spare was, but it's not going to impede where the tank would go.
Right. And something like this for putting things underneath probably gives you a little bit more mounting options, just because
Yeah.
now you don't have a composite, especially with
Right.
the Toyota.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yep.
Yeah, when I see these things, just how customizable they are. Like my first thought, the first time I saw this was like a pull-out stove on one side or something like that. These can just be super modified, and you actually have places that you can sink bolts into if you decide to go that far. You can put rib nuts anywhere.
Yeah,
It's pretty
you can,
awesome.
Yeah, exactly. You can mount rib nuts in places and tracks and things. We've toyed around with some ideas of slide outs and stuff, but then even instead of having the slide itself taking up space, just have it to where it can hang, it clip and hang
Right.
type thing for like a little table
Oh, cool.
or something like that. And even maybe changing this right here so you can have maybe something on either side to where this is stronger to where you could actually stand on it.
Yeah.
So, any number of things that we're kind of messing around with. That's all the fun of a prototype.
Yeah.
We're gonna.
And you guys do full-on builds as well as just sell components like this. So if you did buy something like this, you could bring it to you and be like, I want this to be a step, and you guys can beef that up.
Yeah.
That you guys do full custom options, as you can see with this truck.
Yeah, it's a lot of it too is a lot of times, like if somebody were to come and get one of these beds, the truck is probably already built,
Right.
because it's there to support the weight of the camper they're using or however they're driving the truck. But we can kind of, if we know what we're working with beforehand, which is the case for every truck we do, because the consultation process, I gather all that information from you. I want to know how many people are in your family, how you're going to drive it, how often you're going to camp, what you're going to carry, all of that stuff. So I'm going to know, and we're going to pick this thing apart and figure out how they're going to want to do it. Now, in order for that to be efficient for everyone, both the client and us to build, we've got to scale it down in a way to where we're not doing one-off stuff with the bed. Like we got to have options that we can offer as a SKU. But some of that stuff, and like all of our wiring, we build all of that anyway. Like
Right.
all of our electrical, we do that anyway. So that's kind of beside the point. But when it comes to like, I want this to be shaped this way or whatever, that is very hard to do because Brent has this in CAD.
Right.
He can reproduce this. So to drastically change the door opening or the door or something like that we're going to try and stay away from that.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Definitely so.
but like everything is custom to a point, for
Right.
everybody, because it's got to work for them,
Yeah.
and we're trying to get this to be the blank canvas that it can be, so it's easier for everybody, the client and us, to kind of achieve their goal
Right.
with this.
Okay, so another question I've gotten about these is slide-in campers. If a slide-in camper made for a Tacoma will work with this bed.
So there is a bed specifically for the slide-in camper market. The back end of this bed, like I was saying earlier, is going to be designed for an alley cab canopy camper entryway,
Right.
for the width of that, creating a tremendous amount of strength on the rear corner of this. So it's not like a post like a typical bed. It's a boxed in, L-shaped boxed in component.
Right.
So that's what's unique about this particular bed. Brent has designed, and he has in his booth over here, is a camper bed. So it's designed for the slide-in style campers because it's got all this kind of storage on both sides. But he told me earlier that it's that particular bed is set up for the type of camper. Like if it's a four-wheel camper, maybe the overhang is a little higher than maybe some other brands, or lower, or whatever, maybe the gap over the bed rail.
Right.
Well, these boxes go all the way up to the underside of that. So you have a ton of storage down the sides, but the entryway in the back is wide. It's about the width of the wheel wells, so that camper can slide straight in.
Right.
And it's got the same boxes in the bottom, the same taper to it, so we'll be able to offer the TAV spec version of those beds.
Cool.
As well. We're his only dealer, so we can offer all of the beds that he has. So if somebody wanted to get, say, a Tacoma built with like a fleet or something like we used one time, we can do that, and we can do the camper bed on a Tacoma.
Sweet.
With some of these same options. So you'll get a big box here that we can run electrical in, lights, compressor, whatever, and then we can have the lower boxes too with our skid plates and all of that stuff. So
Okay.
but it is a specific bed that he has called the camper bed that you can run those types of campers in.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and because this is a TAV spec bed from Bowen Customs.
Correct.
Yeah, so you can just go and check those out, and then he's got all the information on what you would need for that. So give them a call or send them an email, and they can get you hooked up. And so let's get into pricing on this.
Sure, yeah.
How much does something like this on? I think the most popular Tacoma is a dual cab 5-foot bed. How much does one of these cost for that?
So the bed is the base. The bed starts about 17.4 for a 5-foot bed, and really the only option we have on this that would be different than that is Line X, like this Line X.
Right.
The vinyl wrap, they're going to come black powder coated. This one's not even powder coated, it's just raw aluminum. So that's a step up from what this truck is, or this bed is.
Okay.
So for 17.4, they're going to get the entire bed and all the cabinets, the matching keyed locks, all of that stuff. And if you wanted an option, we're trying to figure out pricing and packaging the options, like a drop-down menu.
Right.
So if they wanted an option, it'll be like Line X, and it'll be set a certain way. If somebody wanted the Line X, the whole bed, we just have to check with the Line X place.
Yeah.
To see what that'll cost. But we can have this dollar amount on our website in the drop-down. So if you select it, we just know you want it. We can do the C deck inside, which is like this nice foam, waterproof foam.
Right.
And that we can put that on every flat surface, every working surface, which is nice. So we'll figure out a price for that. The Line X on the fenders, the skid plates, that's going to be an option. The box enclosures like this one's enclosed.
Okay.
It's enclosed out to the end, which gives you a shelf on the inside. That's what the jack is mounted to.
Sweet.
So the enclosure itself will be an option. They'll all come standard open like this. That's a pass-through, which gives everybody the option to lay the floor plan out any way they want.
Right.
So, and this one we did half and half. So on the long bed truck, you can see that one's enclosed, one's open, same way on the other side. The short bed truck, though, I believe that drawer or that cabinet door is longer.
Okay.
So there isn't two of them, because it will end, like you won't have this front box.
Okay.
Because it'll end where the fender is, because it's 4 foot shorter.
I see.
So that box will be longer than this one is, but it cuts this off here.
Gotcha.
You'll have a trim piece right here. We have to figure out the pricing on the options, because we're not sure if Brent's going to build the enclosures for us.
Okay.
We're exploring a couple options there with folks we already work with. So we're just going to figure out who's going to make what and how we're going to build the SKUs for everybody's system, so it can be very predictable and
Right.
have a number associated to it, so we can give accurate numbers to the customer.
Definitely.
So that's still in development, and some of the other options, as anybody can expect with something like this, we're going to be like, oh, this would be cool to put this here, you know, and it can be an option, or it may end up just rolling into be a standard component for the new bed. So
right.
that stuff's going to change over time, and we'll be developing that stuff over time. But I think everybody will like seeing the innovation and how we're going to be changing and building. And we don't want it to be like, man, I should have waited to get this bed. We want to be able to make it an addition to
right.
what they already have, kind of like we did with our stage system and the suspension.
Cool.
Like a stage 1, 2, and 3 on the back of the truck, the suspension's exactly the same.
Right.
It's just if you want a stage 2, it's in addition to a component, you're adding to what you already have.
Okay.
To build you into the next stage. So we want to be able to do the same thing with the bed, and not feel like they should have waited for a new version later. You know, the refinements are going to come, as with anything, but we want the original bed, the production model that's currently out right now, to work with the things that are coming up later.
Okay.
So if this door changed in any way, the way it looks, we can unbolt the hinges and change the cabinet door or whatever.
So on the pricing, I know a lot of people were like, holy crap, that's the cost of a camper. But from somebody like myself and somebody like you, if you walk around an Overland Expo and you see these Sprinter vans and stuff, they're $180,000 to $220,000. So when I'm seeing something like this, I can have the off-road capability of something like Gladiator or Tacoma that I can beef up, and I can build this thing out to an actual living space, because having this makes a huge difference for something like that. So you can build a truck that can truly go four-wheel drive, because those Sprinter vans and stuff, they're not actually, they have four-wheel drive, but they're not a real four-wheel drive. So you can build something out for $100,000 less than something like that.
Yeah.
And you can go a lot more places with something like this. So in the grand scheme of things, like, I know people see like sticker shock with that, but there's a lot of us that really value something like this.
Yeah.
And this is going to be big on the market, and you'll be able to turn your truck into a true living space. Like somebody who lived full-time on the road, something like that, I think you can't go wrong with this. You can customize this to live outside, inside, pass stuff through to Natalia whenever I need, you know, hand me a beer is always my thing.
There you go, just slides out right there.
Yeah. So there's a lot of customizable options on these things, and I think these are going to be big sellers, man. You're on something cool here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been fun working with Brent on this, because like every time we see each other, we're like, well, what do you think about this? Or like, what do you think about that? You know, and he's already working on other stuff, because he's got a whole other selection of beds for different applications. Like this is just one of the beds that we wanted to be able to have an offering for, like campers like this that mount on top of the bed, or the canopies or the bed racks. Like for somebody that already has this stuff, or they want to do a build obviously and do the whole thing at once, but they already have this and maybe their bed's failing on them or something like that, and they don't want to start over with another potential failing bed.
Right.
But otherwise there were flatbed options, and you had to heavily modify those with bulkheads that could support the camper and things like that. But now the floor of the bed is up high.
Right.
So with this, the floor of the bed is the same height as a stock bed.
Yeah.
And this is the same height as a stock bed. So we're just creating usable space and far more strength in this bed than a stock bed.
Yeah.
So like on the Tacomas, that composite bed, you know, I've seen them tear from the front corners all the way down. The back corners can spread open. I know so many people have had an issue with that. And our bed hadn't failed yet, but I didn't want to get to the point of complete failure, and then I'm like, I'm stuck. Wanted to make sure we could work on this first. Take that other bed off, put this on. It's a replacement component. And kind of going back to the price of it is, it's people will spend a certain dollar amount on a camper, and everybody's like, oh, that's expensive. Everything's expensive.
Everything's expensive.
Football tickets are expensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's what you're passionate about. If it's going to support your livelihood, or if it's going to support your hobbies out in the field, and it's going to keep your gear and your home away from home safe and structurally sound, it's worth what you're investing into it.
Right, definitely.
And this is a handmade, USA made bed, designed, engineered, and tested and built in the US.
Yep.
There's a lot to be said for that, because it's hard to get certain materials and components. And a lot of people have been importing stuff. Well, there's importation taxes, there's all kinds of tariffs, there's all kinds of stuff that people are paying for that you never see, you never get to see. So it drives the price up. So that to me is expensive.
Yeah, definitely.
So if I have to pay a little extra up front, knowing I'm getting a handmade, USA made component, I'm going to do that.
Right.
I had to buy this. I didn't get this bed for free.
Yeah.
we're designing this with Brent, so he has to buy the materials. That's not cheap. It's expensive for all of us. But we're here to provide a really, really killer component for anyone that needs it.
Right.
And anyone that needs it is going to understand you're going to have to pay for stuff like that.
Definitely.
And now there's a understanding there, like we're not going to jack the price up to like 100%. That nobody can realistically do that.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? But I think a lot of people have that in their mind that that's what happens. You know, so when you look at what it costs to buy a sheet of aluminum and then the foam tape, you know what I mean?
Right.
Stuff that people don't understand. There's problems with getting stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, and in bulk to where you can produce these for people. So when it comes down to price and cost, this is a USA made component, designed, engineered, and USA made. So
Right.
very proud of that fact. But you know, USA made camper, USA made bed, and if there's ever an issue, they can call us or Brent. You know, it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
So
and if they're building a world traveling vehicle, this is all practical components. You can get this kind of stuff on Amazon. So if you
Yep.
were overseas and you needed to fix something,
Just buy a
that's
roll
what's
of
cool
it.
about it. Is
Yeah.
you can actually fix this. This isn't a special Toyota part or
Right.
whatever brand it is, and you can just make this work
Mhm.
and fix it on the side of the road,
Yeah.
which is super cool. Not that I think anybody would break this. This is pretty sturdy.
yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, if you take care of it, it'll last the life of the truck or longer.
Right.
You know, and but if you abuse it, you can break anything. You know, so it's same thing with the truck. You're going to take care of it. If you invest in it, you'll take care of it.
Right.
You know.
And I will be following up on this because I'm super interested in these truck beds. And then we've become friends over the weekend, so I will be keeping up and pestering them all the time about the advancements in this
Anytime.
truck bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are super cool. Check these things out. And if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and feel free to check out my other adventure, off-road, and overland related content.